They mocked her for marrying a homeless man until 2 weeks later. A convoy of black SUVs rolled into town, and the beggar stepped out in gold. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another emotional story that touches the heart. In a quiet little town just outside Dallas, Texas, the dusty streets held more secrets than the people like to admit. On one of those streets lived Emily Carter, a frail but beautiful young woman whose heart was as pure as a Sunday morning hymn. Emily lost both of her parents when she was just 12. Her father, a construction worker, died in an accident, and her mother passed away from illness months later. She was sent to live with her Uncle George and Aunt Linda, who treated her like a servant rather than family. Every day, Emily rose before dawn, cooked, cleaned, fetched water, and did laundry for everyone. Her aunt would bark orders while sipping coffee, and her uncle would remind her, "You should be grateful we took you in, girl." Emily would smile weakly and whisper, "Yes, Uncle George." Her only comfort came from the church choir, where she sang on Sundays. Her voice carried a kind of peace that people couldn't explain. Even Sarah Thompson, the kind woman next door, often said, "Emily, you've got an angel's heart. Don't let this world harden it." But that world was about to test her. One hot afternoon, Uncle George came home with a strange grin. "Emily," he said, "someone's asked to marry you." Emily froze, her hands trembling as she wiped flour from her apron. "Who, Uncle?" George smirked. "Michael Brooks." Her heart sank. Everyone in town knew Michael, the man who begged near the gas station, the one with torn clothes and an old guitar. The man everyone called Crazy Mike. Emily's eyes filled with tears. "Uncle George. He's homeless. I can't." Linda slammed her coffee mug on the table. "You'll do as we say. Who else would want a poor orphan like you?" George leaned in, his tone greedy. "He promised me $500 if I gave him a wife. He said he needs someone who won't look down on him." Emily's lips quivered. "Uncle, please." But no one listened. Within days, they arranged a small wedding behind the local church. No family from her side attended, no music played, no celebration. Only whispers, laughter, and mocking faces from the townspeople. As she stood beside Michael, she couldn't help but notice his eyes, gentle, kind, and strangely calm. When he took her hand, he whispered softly, "Don't be afraid. Emily, everything happens for a reason." They exchanged vows, and she became Mrs. Emily Brooks, the beggar's wife. When they left the church, children giggled, women whispered, and men shook their heads. One voice called out, "She married the man from under the bridge." Another laughed, "Guess love really is blind." Emily walked with her head down, her hand in Michael's. Tears streamed silently down her cheeks as they headed toward the old shack where he lived, a broken shelter at the edge of town. That night, while she lay on the thin mattress, staring at the ceiling through holes in the roof, Michael whispered, "Thank you for not running away." She replied softly, "Where would I go?" He smiled faintly in the dark. "Maybe into a better life than this one." She didn't know yet that his words weren't just kindness, they were prophecy. If you were Emily, forced into a marriage with someone everyone looked down on, would you stay or run away? Tell me in the comments. The first few mornings in her new home felt strange to Emily. The old shack creaked when the wind blew, and cold air seeped through the cracks in the wooden walls. There was no electricity, no running water, just a kerosene lamp, a small bed, and two hearts trying to find peace in the middle of poverty. Michael woke early every day, walked to town, and played his guitar by the roadside, hoping passersby would drop coins in his hat. He always came back with something small, sometimes a loaf of bread, sometimes nothing at all. But no matter what, he always shared it evenly. One morning, as they ate a piece of stale bread together, Emily said quietly, "Michael, why did you want to marry me?" He looked at her, his calm brown eyes glinting with warmth. "Because I saw kindness in you," he said. "The kind that doesn't fade, even when the world turns cold." His words startled her. Most men in town had mocked her or ignored her existence. But Michael spoke as if he saw something no one else did. Over the next few days, Emily began to notice things about him: how he always said thank you when she cooked, how he prayed before every meal, and how he never complained, no matter how hard life seemed. He spent his evenings fixing broken things around the shack, humming softly to himself. "Michael," she asked one evening, "were you always poor?" He smiled. "I've seen both sides of life, Emily. Sometimes you have to lose everything to know what's real." She didn't quite understand his words, but there was something about his tone that felt different. Meanwhile, the town never stopped mocking them. Children pointed when she passed by, women whispered at the market, and her uncle, George, laughed every time he saw her. "How's life with your millionaire husband?" he sneered once. Emily lowered her gaze. "It's peaceful, Uncle." "Peaceful?" He laughed harshly. "Peace won't fill your belly, girl." She said nothing. She simply walked away, her basket of vegetables clutched tight in her hands. Deep inside, she was learning something powerful. Peace wasn't about money or status. It was about gratitude. Later that evening, when she returned home, she found Michael sitting by the window, sketching something on paper. "What are you drawing?" she asked curiously. He looked up and smiled. "A dream," he said. The drawing showed a big house, cars, and children running in a garden. She laughed softly. "That's a big dream for us, Michael. Don't underestimate dreams, Emily," he said gently. "They're seeds that grow in silence before anyone sees the flowers." That night, as the moonlight poured through the window, Emily realized something had changed. She no longer felt trapped. She felt safe. It wasn't the kind of safety that came from walls or locks, but from the quiet strength in Michael's eyes. She didn't know that beneath those rags was a man who could change her life forever. Do you believe true love can grow even in poverty? Comment yes if you think kindness matters more than money. Days turned into weeks, and Emily began settling into her new life. She cooked, cleaned, and prayed beside Michael, learning that peace could grow even in poverty. Yet there were small moments that didn't add up. Michael often disappeared late at night, saying he needed to clear his head. One evening, as he walked away with his old guitar, Emily quietly followed him, staying just far enough behind that he wouldn't notice. The moon shone on the dirt road leading out of town. Michael stopped at the edge of the woods, where a black SUV waited, with its headlights dimmed. A tall man in a suit stepped out. Emily gasped softly and ducked behind a tree. "Sir," the man said in a low voice, "your father's been calling non-stop. He wants you back in Dallas. The company board is growing restless." Michael sighed. "Tell my father I'm not coming back yet. Not until I know she's real." "She? The girl?" the driver asked. "Yes," Michael said, his tone firm but gentle. "Emily, she's not like the others. She sees me, not what I can give her." Emily's eyes widened. What was happening? The driver looked uneasy. "Mr. Brooks, with all due respect, you've been pretending to be a beggar for months. You're the heir to Brooks Enterprises. You can't hide forever." Emily's knees went weak. Brooks Enterprises? The name sounded familiar. Everyone in Texas knew that company. It was one of the largest real estate empires in the South. Michael's voice softened. "Money made me blind once. I needed to know if love could see without it." The driver nodded. "And what will you tell her when she finds out?" Michael looked toward the town, where Emily's small figure hid behind the trees. "The truth," he said, "but not yet. I need her heart to choose me before her eyes see my world." The SUV door shut softly, and the car disappeared into the darkness. Emily stood frozen, her mind racing. Her husband, the man she cooked for, cared for, pitied, was no beggar. He was a billionaire's son, living in rags. Tears rolled down her cheeks, not from anger, but confusion. "Why me?" When Michael returned home later that night, he found Emily sitting quietly, staring at the lamp flame. "You're quiet tonight," he said gently. She forced a small smile. "Just thinking." He sat beside her. "Thinking about what?" "About how people aren't always what they seem," she said softly. Michael froze for a moment, then smiled faintly. That's true. Sometimes the poorest-looking people have the richest hearts. She looked at him, wondering if he knew that she now carried his secret. But she said nothing. Deep inside, she wanted to see what kind of man he truly was, with or without the truth. As the night deepened, Emily whispered a prayer she hadn't spoken in years. God, if this is a test, give me the heart to pass it. Would you forgive someone who hid their true identity to test your heart? Comment yes or no below. I'm curious what you'd do. After that strange night, Emily couldn't stop thinking about what she'd seen. Every word Michael had spoken to that driver echoed in her mind. I needed to know if love could see without money. She wanted to confront him, but something inside her said to wait. Maybe this was a story that hadn't finished unfolding yet. As the days passed, she noticed Michael growing quieter. He would stare into the distance, lost in thought, and sometimes smile sadly when he caught her watching him. One afternoon, he returned from town with a weary look. Emily, he said softly, sitting by the table, I think I'm getting sick. Alarm filled her face. Sick? What's wrong? Just a fever, he murmured. It'll pass. But it didn't. Over the next few days, Michael's condition worsened. He could barely stand, his voice cracked, and his hands trembled. Emily stayed by his side, placing cold cloths on his forehead, praying by candlelight every night. The villagers noticed. Some mocked her. The beggar's dying, one man said at the market. Guess she'll be free soon. Others shook their heads. Poor girl, she married a curse. But Emily didn't care what they said. She sold her few belongings, her only pair of shoes, her mother's old necklace, even her wedding dress to buy medicine and food for Michael. Sarah Thompson, her kind neighbor, found her one morning crying by the pharmacy door. Emily, child, what's wrong? I need antibiotics, Emily whispered, clutching a handful of coins. But I don't have enough. Without a word, Sarah reached into her purse and added a few bills. Take it, she said. Love like yours deserves a chance. That night, Emily spoon-fed Michael and whispered, You'll get better, I promise. Michael, half awake, looked at her through tired eyes. Why do you care so much, Emily? You could walk away. Find a better life. She smiled faintly. Because I made a vow. And because you're not just a man, Michael. You're good. Tears filled his eyes. He turned away, swallowing the lump in his throat. He had tested many women before, some who claimed love, but ran when he had nothing. Yet here she was, a woman who had lost everything, still choosing him every day. That night, while Emily slept beside him, he watched her face illuminated by the moonlight. She's the one, he thought, the woman I prayed for. The next morning, Michael was gone. Emily woke to find his side of the bed empty. Panic surged through her as she searched the shack, the yard, and the road leading to town. On the table lay a folded note written in his neat handwriting. Emily, my love, don't be afraid. I must go, but I will return. Your kindness has healed more than my body. It healed my heart. She pressed the note to her chest and sobbed. Please, come back, she whispered. Days passed, then a week. The shack grew silent, but Emily's hope never wavered. She continued to pray for him every night, whispering into the darkness, wherever you are, be safe. Little did she know, miles away in Dallas, Michael stood before the massive glass building of Brooks Enterprises, wearing the same rags he had worn in town. His father, Richard Brooks, emerged from a black limousine, his silver hair glinting in the sunlight. Son, the old man said, his voice trembling with emotion, you've been gone long enough. Michael looked down, smiling. I had to be sure, Dad. I found her the one who didn't love the Brooks name. She loved me. Richard placed a proud hand on his son's shoulder. Then bring her home. Michael nodded, his eyes shining. I will, but not as a beggar this time. Would you wait for someone who disappeared with only a note if you truly believed in their love? Comment yes or no below. The morning sun shone brightly over Willow Creek, the small Texas town that had mocked Emily Carter for marrying a beggar. For the first time in weeks, The streets buzzed with an odd sort of tension, people whispering, pointing, and squinting toward the long road that led out of town. It started as a faint rumble, then grew louder. Engines. Heavy, powerful engines. Children ran to the roadside. Cars. Big ones. A boy shouted. One by one, black SUVs rolled down the dusty road, followed by sleek sedans and 2 limousines, their tinted windows gleaming in the sun. Sarah Thompson dropped her shopping basket in shock. Lord have mercy, she whispered. The townspeople poured out from stores and houses, craning their necks to see who was coming. Men removed their hats. Women gasped. The convoy stopped right in front of Uncle George's house. Who on earth is that? Aunt Linda stammered. Before anyone could answer, the door of the first limousine opened, and out stepped a tall man in a navy blue suit. His hair was neatly cut, his shoes polished, his posture commanding. Emily froze where she stood, near the well. Her heart pounded as the man turned toward her. It was Michael, the same man she had once shared stale bread with. The same man who had disappeared in the night, except now, he was unrecognizable, confident, elegant, powerful. Gasps rippled through the crowd. That's him, the beggar. Someone whispered. Michael's eyes searched for her, and when they met, he smiled. Not the soft, uncertain smile of a poor man, but one filled with pride and love. He walked straight toward her, his father, Richard Brooks, following close behind. Cameras flashed as reporters shouted questions. Mr. Brooks, is it true you were living undercover as a homeless man? Who is the woman with you? Is this your wife? Michael ignored them. He stopped in front of Emily, took her trembling hands, and said softly, I told you I'd come back. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. Michael, I thought I'd lost you. You never lost me, he said. You found me when I had nothing, and that means you deserve everything. The crowd fell silent. Richard Brooks stepped forward and addressed everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, my son, Michael Brooks Jr., chose to live humbly to test the heart of humanity. And among all he met, only one person showed him real love, this young woman. The crowd murmured in awe. Uncle George stumbled out of his house, pale and shaking. Michael, I didn't know. Michael turned to him, his expression calm but firm. You sold your niece for a few dollars. You judged me by my rags. But she saw my soul. George fell to his knees. Please forgive me. Michael looked at Emily, who touched his arm gently. Forgive them, she whispered. They didn't know. He nodded slowly. Then let grace speak louder than pride. Turning back to the crowd, Michael said, let this be a lesson. The value of a person isn't written on their clothes, but in their heart. Reporters snapped photos, capturing the emotional reunion. Emily's tears glistened as Michael placed his hand on her cheek. Come home with me, he said softly. The convoy doors opened, and he led her inside. The villagers watched in silence as the vehicles started their engines again. Dust rose into the sky as they rolled away, leaving behind a town forever changed. Inside the car, Emily gazed out the window, still stunned. You were never poor, Michael smiled, taking her hand. Not after I met you. If you were in Emily's place, would you forgive your family or walk away and never look back? Comment your honest answer below. The convoy moved smoothly along the Dallas freeway, a trail of power and prestige that no one could ignore. Emily sat quietly beside Michael, her hands still trembling. She had gone from a wooden shack to the back seat of a limousine in the span of a single morning. Michael turned to her and smiled gently. Are you okay? Emily looked down at her simple dress, dusty from the road. I feel like I don't belong here, she whispered. He reached for her hand. You belong wherever love takes you. When the convoy reached Brooks Manor, a massive estate with marble pillars and fountains, Emily's breath caught in her throat. Dozens of staff members lined the driveway, bowing respectfully as the car door opened. Richard Brooks stepped forward, his warm eyes filled with gratitude. Welcome home, Emily, he said. Any woman who could love my son through poverty is family to me. She bowed her head humbly. Thank you, sir. The staff escorted her inside. Chandeliers hung like stars from the ceiling, and the smell of roses filled the air. It all felt like a dream she wasn't supposed to have. That evening, Richard held a press conference in the Grand Hall. Reporters filled the room as cameras rolled. Standing beside Michael and Emily, he announced, "This is my son's wife, Mrs. Emily Brooks. She saw his worth when the world only saw his rags. Today, she becomes part of this family, not by wealth, but by heart." The room erupted in applause. In the days that followed, Emily's life changed completely. Michael bought her a new wardrobe, but she never let go of her old clothes. "These remind me where love found me," she said with a smile. She used her new position to start a charity foundation in Willow Creek, helping poor families and homeless people find shelter. She even built a small community library dedicated to her late parents. A few weeks later, Michael and Emily returned to Willow Creek, this time not in secret, but as honored guests. The same people who had mocked them now greeted them with tears and open arms. Uncle George and Aunt Linda stood by their porch, heads bowed in shame. George spoke first, his voice trembling. "Emily, we wronged you. Can you ever forgive us?" Emily smiled softly. "Uncle, I forgave you the day I left. Holding on to hate would have made me poor in my heart." Tears welled in Linda's eyes. "You're a better woman than I ever was." Emily embraced them both, whispering, "We all make mistakes. What matters is what we learn from them." That Sunday, the town's small church overflowed with people. Pastor John stood at the pulpit and said, "Let this be a lesson to us all, that true wealth lies not in pockets, but in purity of heart." Michael held Emily's hand tightly as the choir began to sing. Outside, children played near the new school that Michael had funded, and the townsfolk spoke with pride about the woman who had once been called the beggar's bride. As the sun set, Emily looked up at the glowing sky and whispered, "Thank you, God, for making me poor enough to find real riches." Michael smiled beside her. "And thank you for loving me when I had nothing to offer." They stood there quietly, watching the sunset, two souls who had walked through mockery, poverty, and pain, only to find grace on the other side. Moral lesson: don't look down on anyone because of where they are today. Tomorrow, they might be the reason you look up. Would you still love someone if they lost everything they had? Just to test your heart? Tell me in the comments below if this story moved you. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more life-changing stories every week. Your support keeps these stories alive.